All right, we're live. Welcome back to the Godfo Universe podcast. I'm Dan Evans, co-creator of the Godfo Universe with Josh Adams here. I'm the writer, he's the artist. We have our first graphic novel, Apollyon 20XX, coming out this spring. Our second one, Biophile Kolga, coming out this fall. They are connected in that they are part of the same universe, but you can read, like all of our stuff, you can read it separately as its own standalone story, because we are not like mainstream comics where you have to jump in 500 issues back to understand one reference that was just made by a B-list writer this week. So, so
Man, it always used to take me off as a kid when I'd be reading comics, and you get the little asterisks, and then down at the bottom is like issue number so and so of whatever series, and like you couldn't find that
read
one.
issue 120 of Web of Spider-Man to figure out who this one character is who won't be here next week. I just imagine young Josh being like, "I'm mad."
Like, well, then I'd go to the comic book store and I'm like, "Yeah, man, you got issue one." Well, if it's in the back, it's in there, but I don't know, man.
Oh, that's still how it is.
No, yeah, they don't have a clue what they have.
But can you? I mean, there's so many jokes there I can't say on YouTube. Let's just say that people in other worse places have been very good at keeping track of things, and this comic guy can't keep a good inventory on his own stuff. We'll just leave that there. Anyway, yes, I'm talking about Genghis Khan. Anyway, yeah, it's still like that. It's still like that. It's still, because I went in there and I asked for people are gonna make fun of me. I asked for Detective Comics 1062, just because I just like the art. I'll grab it real quick so you can see like the cover. It's not great because like most modern Batman isn't good, but the guy was like, if it's in there, like man, what other business would you go to and like they don't keep track of inventory? Like, hey man, you got some Sudafed?
If it's in there, man. You can look through the box.
Can you imagine if pharmacies were owned by comic book store owners?
There's a few of them that probably are illegal ones.
Let me grab that comic real quick.
No.
Say something funny. Tell that joke you know.
I can't. It's on YouTube.
Here it is. So that's the cover.
Oh yeah, I almost picked that one up too, just because the cover was
Batman
dope.
Nocturne. The art is great. I like the idea of the story. It's kind of like this. If they land it, I haven't read it, so if someone has, tell me if they land it. They kind of connect it to this opera, and there's magic stuff, which I love when magic stuff, like dark magic stuff, comes into Batman.
Yeah, I've always loved it when he's in. That's why I like his interactions with Justice League Dark are always really cool.
Yeah, I think that stuff's great. But I know we're gonna talk about something else, but that's fine. We can talk about this right now because it's our own podcast. But so much, and I think it's kind of like Grant Morrison. Who's the guy that did the new X-Men? Was that Vaughn? Brian K. Vaughan?
Yeah, Brian Vaughn.
A lot of those guys, which I'm so old, I still consider them new writers. They would get an idea.
This isn't Steve Ditko.
Yeah, this ain't Jack Coiby.
Jack Coiby.
They'd get like a good idea and try to connect it to something bigger, and then they would just fail miserably and not know what they're doing. I mean, even Gaiman does that half the time. Even in his classic works, he tried it. Like, I mean, Gaiman's such a good writer. That's what gets him by, because Neverwhere is not a good book and not a good story. I have read it multiple times, and I'm like, this is the most British thing I've ever read, and that's not in a good way. Because Tolkien was British, but he figured it out.
I didn't dislike Neverwhere. It was nowhere near the level that American Gods is, though. American Gods is so good.
The only problem with American Gods, like I said, I'm fine with spoilers, is it didn't get spoiled for me. I just predicted it. Like, as soon as Thor showed up, I'm like, oh, he's going to sacrifice like a battle to himself. Or Odin, not Thor. Yeah. Like, I knew it, like, as soon as like he's using Shadow, this is what this, because to Gaiman's credit, that's what that god would do.
Yeah, I mean that I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that book and Anasazi Boys, I like both of those a lot. He's mostly really good.
Yeah, he's a wonderful writer.
Perfect, but
as far as technically proficient, he's a great writer. The Graveyard book wasn't bad.
I didn't read that one. I remember it coming out. I remember he did a few episodes of Doctor Who that were really good.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, he made Spawn what it could have been, and I know what I just said. I know what I said with that sentence, and I stand by it. He made it what it could have been.
I said what I said.
Yeah. And what's funny is the main stuff that McFarlane is doing with Spawn now, with like King Spawn and all that, all comes from everything that he that Gaiman laid down. Like 20, 30 years ago, because McFarlane, one of the greatest comic artists of all time, one of the worst comic writers of all time. Like, I have all of Spawn 1 through 100 right here, and I can't bring myself to go through them. Now, because, like, I'll stop to look at the art, and then when I bring myself to read it, I'm like, this sucks. Like, but
another example of the right thing at the right time, the right look.
Well, hey, I fell for it, and I would again. I unapologetically, if I could wallpaper my entire house with those issues, I would, because between him and Capullo's work on that, works of art, brilliant.
Well, see, and that, to me, that's when Spawn really took off, and I started like regularly buying it. Was when Capullo took it, because I loved his artwork. I remember I had an issue of Wizard magazine. I probably still have it in here somewhere. Wizard used to have for a while. They had Wizards of the Coast.
Jack Coivy and the Wizards of the Coast. That would be the most the greatest and most obnoxious podcast ever.
But yeah, Capullo used to have a segment in that magazine of just like how to draw lessons about like horror stuff and creatures and things. I learned a lot as a 9-10-year-old kid from those magazines with Capullo. But I remember they did this like 5 or 6 page spread for when he had taken over duties from Todd. And man, I just remember being like blown away by his artwork, and like it was so inspiring to me as a young comic book artist. Like, and drawing my little comics in the back of my notebooks.
Well, I'm gonna say this too: the run he did with Snyder on the New 52.
It's so good.
I've often insulted his Bruce Wayne and his Bat family faces, and I stand by that. He drew them very soft and effeminate for some reason. But everything else, all the cape stuff and the cowl stuff, and the Joker, I mean, everything looked great. I wish he'd have gotten the same colorist that he had during Spawn, because that guy, I don't know if that was McFarlane. I'm so stupid I should look it up. But whoever the colorist for Spawn was, I mean, that's really what made it pop. Was those kind of cool nuclear and dark colors. Man, they're works of art. Yeah,
I feel like there was some fantastic art in that book in those early years.
Yeah, so
it pushed the envelope on violence too in comics, which I loved.
By like issue 3 or 4, he was sticking ice cream scoopers in a pedophile.
Well, I remember the first thing that really like blew me away was that when he fights the Redeemer, and like punches right through his chest.
Yeah,
I was like, oh.
Well, in issue 2, the Violator is ripping people's hearts out.
Yeah.
And anyway, well, we always tend to fluff McFarlane, and
I mean, I also remember I had it on cassette. I had it on
the cartoon
CD. Well, no. I had there was the Iced Earth metal band. They put out an album. They put out an album called Dark Saga. That was a Spawn concept album.
Yeah,
like the whole album was a Spawn concept album.
Isn't that guy in January 6th prison now?
Yeah, he is.
Is there any footage? Is there any footage of him released?
I don't think there's footage. I know there's pictures. I've seen pictures of him. I don't know if there's any like actual motion picture.
Tucker Carlson's not getting him out.
No, but man, I just remember listening to that song.
Could you see that? Could you see that as a bit? Like, let me see if I can do the Tucker Carlson. Which, for the record, I don't watch Fox News or CNN. Let's see if I can do like the lead singer of Iced Earth, railroaded with the January 6 hearings. This patriot, this Viking patriot. Could you see Tucker Carlson doing like a defense piece for the guy from Iced Earth? Well, you know he has no idea who Iced Earth is.
Well, and the funny thing is that John Schaefer from Iced Earth, that dude is like, he definitely sees himself as a patriot.
Yeah,
like he had an album, like a solo album thing that was all like, it was very much like the Confederacy. Like, we're gonna stand up, back the government, back, take our guns.
Remember, what's his name? Phil Anselmo.
Oh gosh, everybody hates him so much.
But it's like that guy. He was such a what's like the word they use for like Texas for people who aren't part of Texas, like a Tex plant or whatever.
Oh yeah,
because he's not from Texas, but Pantera is, and as soon as he was in Pantera, he became all like, and it's like obnoxiously so, and like everybody's like, dude, you gotta like tone it down, like.
Well, see, like he actually, he apologized years back, for some of that stuff after Dime Dad died, but like they're touring again now, like it's Rex and Phil with Charlie Benante from Anthrax on drums and Zakk Wylde on guitar.
That's like having the News without Huey Lewis.
Well, and that's the thing is like, and the videos I've seen, like they sound great, like they really do legitimately sound good, and I can understand like if you like if I could go see them I would, but like they've gotten kicked off of several European tour dates because of the stuff that Phil said back in the day. Like there's been several countries that are like, nah.
You're like, no Eastern European countries. Just Western European countries. All the ones that we see movies of. Like
it's just funny how many of those places like, no, we don't want Pantera.
All the white girl European countries that they're gonna eat, pray, love their way through. not the Hostel movie European countries. Because they're like, I don't care what he said.
Euro trip.
Because they're always like, oh, the Eastern European countries are like, we're still dying to communism somehow. We don't care what he says.
Exactly.
We're still scared. We're still scared Russia's coming back.
Man, I'll still jam some Pantera though, man.
Yeah, Pantera rocks, like objectively.
Dude,
rocks.
The first time I heard Cowboys from Hell, it blew my mind. And, I was like, I thought I knew what heavy music was.
The first one I heard was Walk.
That's a good one too. I don't know. I remember hearing that. I feel like I saw the Cowboys from Hell video on an episode of Beavis and Butthead or something. And I remember thinking, holy cow, what is this? This is so much heavier than what I'm listening to.
I learned that solo. I remember sitting in my room and learning that, like yeah, that's such a cool run. I stole it for a song, but it was like it's like a half step to a minor third, and then you just go down because he didn't follow any theory with it. Like you just start on like the top string and just go down the strings like that. So it's a really weird.
That's the way he was though. Dimebag was in a class of his own. He was almost as unique a player as like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, that's who he aspired to be.
Like he was so different, and that's one of the things that like listening to Zakk Wylde, who is also an incredible guitarist.
Yeah, he's technically a great guitar player.
He can get kind of in a rut to where every riff has those pinch harmonics and stuff, but like he's technically an incredible player, but like listening to him try, playing a dime guitar parts, like the riffs sound the same pretty much, but when it comes to those solos, like it is not the same. Nobody plays like Dime.
Dime, like Eddie, was pure intuition. They knew what they were doing. They studied their skill and their craft, but when it came to going off, like they could turn on inspiration and just do it. And like that's such a lost. I mean, that's what Slash could do. That's what's made those guys so good, like Page, and that's kind of a lost art, I think, within a lot of guys that overthink stuff, especially in the Gent era and that kind of stuff. They're thinking of the next arpeggio. They're thinking of their theory. You should learn theory, but you should be able to turn it off too.
Yeah, well, see, and that's the thing is you hear anymore everybody's so impressed by speed and sweep picking and things like that. And you got bands like Dragon Force that come out and oh my god, listen to how they play, they're so fast. It's like, yeah, it's fast, yeah, it's like technically it's impressive, but it's also kind of soulless. Like it's not lyrical at all. And then you look at a song like Floods by Pantera, and his solo on that song is one of the most emotional and moving electric guitar pieces I've ever heard in my life. Like, it is an absolutely lyrical solo.
Well, that's what.
And
Buckethead.
There's guys that can't do that.
Yeah, Buckethead.
Oh yeah, Buckethead's another one.
Yeah, Buckethead could go 300 BPM and make you feel something. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is people think soul is like, well, it's not technical, it's sloppy. It's like, no, you can be unbelievably on point, and that's what jazz is. Like, a lot of those guys are like unbelievably good, but still have something, a story they're telling you, and still expressing something. In fact, a lot of those guys learn that skill so they can do it. But I mean, it's past that now. Like, if we want to go off and talk about music, which is fine with me, that's my main thing. Like Tosin Abadi, I don't know how you say his name, from Animals as Leaders. Almost peerless in his technical capacity. He's pushed the guitar further than anybody probably in the past 20 years. And then the kids from Polyphia, I say kids are probably like 30, they just look 12, have pushed. I'm not a big fan of their music. I think it's a little too locked in. I think it's a little too contrived, but it's brilliant in its theory and its execution. I can't play it. But they just like Tosin, just like Buckethead, just like I mean, a lot of those guys were doing it. They just weren't on the map. A lot of what's his name from Nuno Bettencourt from Extreme.
Oh yeah, that dude was incredible.
They explored rhythmic changes too, and but that's what it's always been, the truly. I mean, that's what Eddie Van Halen was. Eddie Van Halen, my gosh, like Panama, like everything. They understood not only the Yngwie Malmsteen idea of speed and precision. They knew rhythmic changes, and it wasn't just like four on the floor straight, which I'm with you. Bands kind of like Dragon Force are kind of boring in that aspect, where it's like it's just the what do they call it? It's not flat lines. I forget what it's called when they do the double bass, like it's not just consistent like 16
and it's notes. It's also and this is another lost art, but there's so many guitarists now they're so ready to show off what they can do that they never have any restraint.
Yeah.
And you look at someone like Slash, you look at someone like, to some degrees, not now, but the older, when he was with Ozzy, you look at Zach, you look at Randy Rhodes, people like that who were
Randy Rhodes,
phenomenal guitarists, but they knew how to let a song breathe. They knew how to play enough at the right moment and then back off and drop back into the pocket instead of just trying to stand out front and overpower the whole song. Eddie was like that. Eddie could stay back until it was his moment, and then boom, he would shine. And you just don't hear that much anymore.
Well, and here's what the main secret a lot of guys don't get. Your favorite guy that you're aspiring to play just like or that's at this unheard of level, like these, like Eruption at its time, or Through the Fire and the Flame, even, just because I say that because it's popular. Those guys that song's up here, they're like here. They're not playing at their peak. They're playing at like 70 to 80%. I mean, it's kind of like DBZ. That's what they don't understand. Like, people think that they got to practice, and like they're gonna play, and it's got to be like this thing. It's like, dude, like, no, you don't understand how good those guys are. They're playing consistently under their level, and that's what
they have to, because otherwise the rest of the band couldn't keep up.
Yeah, or they don't want it to be sloppy. They don't want to fall apart. But it's like guys like Buckethead, Paul Gilbert, like I said, Tosin Abadi, they're playing way under their skill level, and but that's what makes them good too. They're not always trying to. I don't know.
Like, you can go back and listen to, and I know everyone's always like, oh, the music was so much better in the 70s and the 80s, the 60s, and that's debatable, but what you can do is let you take the 80s you can take somebody like Richie Sambora from Bon Jovi, who is not like, dude is definitely not an Eddie Van Halen. He's not, he's definitely not like one of the greatest guitarists of all time.
Yeah, still a great guitar player.
But he was a very, very good guitar player who knew he knew where his place in the song was perfectly. And I'll apply the same thing to drums, like, because you and I, we both played in different bands with drummers and stuff, and every drummer has their own style, their own approach to it. But I will take, because I have experience with both, I will take a drummer who is a more simple, stripped down drummer but can stay in the pocket over somebody who's all feels and all this technically impressive stuff, but can't land on the right beat, that cannot keep a steady tempo, because the rest of the band's always either having to speed up to catch up to him or slow down to catch up to him. Give me that guy can keep the beat. Because that's the time to. If you're Neil Peart and you can keep the beat and do all that stuff, that's fine. But most of them aren't.
Well, that's the thing, and like I don't know his name, but it's this guy on YouTube, and I hate to say it, this sounds racist. I don't know what he like. I don't know if he's Mediterranean or Italian or what. He's olive skin or darker skin. He's got black hair, super jacked and well spoken. You can tell English isn't his first language, I think, but he speaks it way better than I do. Phenomenal guitar player.
He does everything better than you, Dan.
He does everything better than me. Phenomenal musician. But people will like Patreon him to roast their music because he was just doing it for free. Like, he was going through YouTube and just finding guys and like playfully roasting them. But he's got like super dry humor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But almost every critique that he says is right. But he's kind of like a shreddy kind of, I would say, like post-jazz kind of guy, which I'm not into. But he does understand musical comprehension. And like, he'll go through and he's like, guys, why are you playing like the same gent riff over and over and over? Or he'll be like, I can tell that a guitar player programmed these drums. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he knows his stuff. And he's someone that people actually listen to regarding that because they respect him. But he's right. It's like, look, guys, if you're gonna like, you should know how to. You don't have to really study theory. You should study theory, but you don't have to make a good song. Just tell me a story. Like, make music. Don't just.
Well, and to kind of segue. I know we chased a rabbit for a while there, but like, if you take that and apply it to comic books and apply it to art and things like that, there is a certain level of needing to understand like color theory, needing to understand, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective, things like that. Like, there's certainly a technical side of art that's important to learn. And then, it's you learn the rules so you can throw the rule book away. It's the same thing that, with any kind of creative process, you learn the bones of it, and then you learn how to operate outside of that, or at least on top of it.
Well, yeah, and I'm gonna ask you this because you excel in both worlds. Like, you are actually a good musician and you're a good artist. I'm not a good artist. But to me, music is it's clearly more primal and primordial than other art forms, because anyone can do it, even if it's not well, because you are born equipped with something that can hit a rock or something that can form sounds. So
right.
I think that's why it seems to me that all art forms follow music, because in every era, it seems like music is the one that starts like the new phase of things, because
then everything else kind of catches up.
But like, that's the thing, is like, you need to learn basic foundation. Like, you can pick up a guitar and play punk and write really great punk songs and not know anything, but you can also pick up a pencil, I'm sure, and draw a crappy stick figure that could do really well on the internet. There's but I don't know. I think if you're an artist, you do reach your limits. Like, you're not gonna be like the guy in Amadeus. I forgot his name. That's beating his head because he's not Amadeus. And he's mad at God that he's not Amadeus. you can accept your limitations, and I think you need to know that you need to grow and grow and grow and get them. Learn your technical skills so you know your limitations, and then you reach a point. I think every artist is like, all right, I could be X greater if this is I spent another 10,000 hours on this, or I can start creating within the limitations I have mastered, and I can grow them. I guess I just took a lot longer way to say what she said, because like I am fascinated with the crossover and the difference between music and visual art, because they're such vastly different worlds. But you're one of the only people I know that actually speaks both of them. So I would love your opinion on that.
Yeah, so like let's take for example, we've been talking about all these technically skilled groups and musicians and things, and you got bands, and I know you're a huge fan of them. You take a band like The Who.
Yeah.
I don't think you could say that any two albums that they released sound the same.
No.
They do. They were wildly creative. They did these huge concept albums. They tried all kinds of new stuff that nobody else was doing at the time, synthesizers and whatnot. The same thing can be said about Rush. That Rush just super incredibly creative. All right. And they have their fan base. And they are skilled on a level that they can operate in that arena.
Yeah.
All right. By the same token, you can take someone like AC/DC, who can write 10 albums, 20 albums, 30 albums using the same 3 or 4 chords.
Yeah.
But they're still beloved because they know where their ceiling is. They know how to operate in that arena, and they know what they're good at. And I think with art, it's the same thing. We can look at a Alex Ross and be like, oh my goodness, it's incredible what that dude can pop out.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also go back and read like the original run of Ninja Turtles back before they were a cartoon or a movie really or anything else. That artwork it's not technically good. Like, you can look at that art and say that's sloppy, it's got horrible anatomy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good art. But that book was great.
It looks like kids that learned to draw comics by watching Frank Miller. And that's exactly what it was.
That's exactly what it was. But, like, you can still read that run, and it's still iconic. It's still a good read. And it still has way more impact on what the Turtles are and became and the legacy than you would have ever imagined. And it is not good art on a technical level, but those guys took the skill they had and they did really something incredible and that changed the world, because that's one of the biggest franchises that's ever existed.
Yeah, it's kind of like a punk rock thing where the idea was better than the execution, which is what it should all like. That's the goal, is you should have an idea that's you have to build your execution up to.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I think that's what people. I think people are more, to go back to your original like idea there. I think people are more willing to try something musical than they are to try something visual, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
But there are a lot more people that'll pick up a guitar and try to do something and stand in and like, let's open up this pit Denny's.
Yeah.
Not knowing what they're doing, but still getting up and doing it. I mean, Lord knows there's plenty of people that sing karaoke that shouldn't.
But I think it's because it's so primitive that we're more likely to do it, because like, you can get up there and just chug a fat E and you'll get some kind of response. That to me is way harder than picking up a pencil and trying to make anything cohesive.
I mean, how many people started their journey of playing guitar by learning drop D, and then that's all they ever did?
Yeah.
And they may have albums out. They may be on tour, and all they ever learned was how to play with a drop D.
You're describing one finger. You're describing Chevelle.
And make a career out of it.
Yeah. Well,
it's a safer place to not be good.
Well, it's strange because I think it's because it's just harder to. I don't know. The art world has always been a little bit stranger than the music world. I mean, they're both god awful. Like they're both you can't trust them. But music again, like it seems way more primal. It's just even. It seems that even throughout history, musicians, even the classically trained ones, had more respect for primal music, as we would call it, than artists had for hieroglyphics, if that makes sense. Because there's evidence of that. There's evidence of like English and German composers going to other parts of the world and learning how they did things, even if they considered it savage at the time. I'm not saying that, YouTube. I'm saying that's what they thought. I'm saying that they were racist against the Orient.
The Orient.
But they would incorporate that into their, and that's how they. Music advances faster, I think, and it changes faster because it's ethereal. You know, when you write down music, the average person can't enjoy it; they have to hear it. But when you like write down or you draw a picture, the person can. I could be wrong, but it seems like until like the 20th century, art didn't really start incorporating it and then like simpler forms, and then when it did, it went too far with it, and we get this kind of modern and postmodern art, this Andy Warhol,
minimalist stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's also
find a healthy way to incorporate it.
Right. So I would say also that music is one of those things that, and I'll explain why I'm saying this, because initially you may disagree with me, but the music world had fewer gatekeepers than the art world did. Like with music, as you know, even modern, you know, even from like the rise of punk rock and all that stuff. Yeah, there were places that didn't want to hear it, but you could find a bar that would let you play.
Yeah. And
you could find an audience that wanted to hear what you said. Like, you know, everybody isn't going to appreciate it, and everybody's not going to appreciate anything, but like, music would always find an audience, even if it was just out on the street. Art, literally. For the longest time, art for the longest time, or literally for centuries, art was a thing that was gate-kept by the wealthy, and if you were going to have any success in the art world, it had to be in a museum. It had to be because you started off with a prestigious school, and you learned from the right teacher, and then you copied what they did until eventually people hired you to do something that was original, and even that needed to look like your master's work did.
Yeah.
And you know, there was not as much of an allowance for expression. So then when you have Monet and Van Gogh and these others that come up and try something different, the art world called them beasts, called them wild animals. Like, the art world hated them. And it took a long time for them to get an audience.
And they flipped it on their head with like Picasso and those guys that really found out how to game that system, and Warhol, and a lot of it was just, quite frankly, BSing a bunch of rich people who they realized these rich people had no idea what they're talking about. And if I play off of that insecurity while also like feeding their hubris, I can sell them anything. And that's what especially Warhol figured out. Picasso was just so ungodly technically talented that that dude can have a blue period, because he can, at 19 he was surpassing his masters. But anyway, music's cheaper, and that's what you and I talk about. That's the great. And I've talked with, I don't like dropping names, but I've talked with some other indie guys, successful indie guys, and they seem to share that they come from a music background, and that's something that we've gone head to head with other people. It's like, when you come from a music background, you don't expect money. Music is cheap because no one pays for it, especially after Napster. And I'm going to segue us into like the main talking point we came here to talk about, which I don't care if we ever get there, but it's part of this conversation.
No, it definitely is a natural progression.
But when AI art, which reached prominence this year, which is strange to realize, when I saw people talking about that, I think I even tweeted it. I was like, "Hey, welcome to the synthesizer, guys!" Like,
this is nothing new. It's not new.
Musicians have been fighting this since like the 70s. Like, and what you're just now realizing that the corporate world and the mass populace will replace you in a heartbeat. They don't care. And that's not to be a doomer. It's like, that should be like, hey, go make something a computer can't.
Yeah, raise the bar.
Yet, what we're talking about, go find a way to utilize it for you.
Yeah, make it a tool that you can use to take what you're doing to another level.
Yep.
Don't stand there and on the street screaming and railing against the thing that is coming regardless. Like, you're not going to stop.
Well,
it's not going to disappear.
Because we understand this so well. And I'm going to go on a branch in hubris and say that. Let's sum up this entire timeline of how this is going to work. AI art. There's going to be douchebags who use it, of course, and try to claim it as art when they do nothing with it. All they do is type a sentence, and they're going to try to do that. Welcome to the synthesizer, guys. Well, welcome to Auto-Tune. What's going to happen is there's going to be a guy. He exists right now. Some kid that's a good artist that's going to grow up with AI, and when he's 20 or 30, he's going to make something, and he's going to make tons of money off of it like that. And he's going to be some guy on YouTube or some guy on Twitter that the ton of people are going to hate, and the mass of people are going to love what he makes because he knows what he's doing. And he's not a con, he's an artist. And he has accepted this technology, and he's figured out a way to do it a way no one else. And then what will happen is the art he makes will get integrated into the system, and people will rip him off. And that's going to happen numerous times, because that's what happens every time.
Yeah, that's always the progression. Well, and I'll be perfectly honest, and you know how many, because I send you stuff all the time. I'm trying to be that guy.
Yeah.
Like I have spent the last year and a half or so really like looking at multiple different AI programs and trying to find ways to take the stuff that I draw and paint or whatever on a page and run it through a series of tools to see what I can do to let AI take it further. Or how can I use AI not to produce my artwork, but can I use AI to give me a composition that I wouldn't have thought of on my own?
And then
can I use AI to give me a color palette that I wouldn't have thought of on my own, but now I look at it as, okay, that's a great color palette. I'm gonna use that as a springboard, but not say, okay, this is my art. No, I use this as a tool, but like it's the same thing that the guitar and the amp. It used to just be, there's just an acoustic guitar. Okay, well now there's an amp, and that amp has settings, and I can have distortion, or I can have a pedal, or I can have wah, and all that stuff. It's just a tool.
The amp distortion, I think I'm right on this. I would love to be corrected. Distortion, I believe, came from cranking it very loudly, but because they wanted it to sound like horns from like big bands and stuff, and they wanted to compete with that. People don't remember that rock bands used to have a horn section, and the guitar was kind of there, and it was very clean. And a lot of these guys were like, "Well, we can play this," and they started cranking it up. And then, of course, the rest is history, so they say. But I'm gonna go off on a limb here and think, man, and be like, here's what needs to happen, because this is what we're doing. We are using AI art, and I don't consider it art, to create ideas and landscapes to better articulate our world for other people. We won't sell it, we won't call it art, but it's like if I have a lore video we're making to show part of our world, I'm not going to have Josh draw huge, massive landscapes when we can give it an idea of it through AI. Welcome to the synthesizer. What will happen is, because it's already, if it continues this way, AI art can't be copyrighted. So how do you get around that? You sell prints or ideas or things. Like, this goes back to music. You don't sell music, guys. You sell tickets. You don't sell AI art. You sell signatures. You sell other stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the band that's in the parking lot of the band that you're going to see that have they're handing you a flyer and a audio cassette with a 2-song demo that they put in their basement, or a burned CD that they're giving you and saying, "Hey, we're playing next week at so and so. Show up."
Yeah, come pay the cover charge that we get $1 out of 5 for, and then buy our shirt that we
buy a T-shirt
that we spent $30 on, or we spent $15 on. We sell you for $30.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you make money. You don't make money by selling, and that's the future of AI art. You don't sell AI art. You sell things affiliated with it. Like, hey, I would love to. We make AI art. I'm telling everybody this because we believe in radical transparency and honesty. Why not? Come at us in the comment section. I don't care. I would love for us to produce AI art and sell prints because we would sign them or figure something else out or put a QR code on them. If you think that's wrong or stupid, I'm not calling it art. Josh is in it. And anyway, anything that we would make would come from Josh's art, not from someone else's art. And welcome to the synthesizer. Get on with it.
Yeah. It's a tool, and it's not going to go away. And as people can be as scared of it as they want to be, but the reality is it's not going to replace human ingenuity.
No, it will replace human work that wasn't ingenious, or sorry, wasn't genuine. Or genius.
Yeah, it will ultimately do what all the other things like this have ever done. Is it's going to weed out the lazy. It's going to weed out the whiners that would rather sit back and just, I can't believe that they're trying to destroy us. Be better at your job than a computer, man.
Be irreplaceable.
Yeah, make yourself relevant.
Now,
it's a challenge.
There's a two-sided thing with this. I would not tell a railroad worker this in like the 1800s or whenever the John Henry story, maybe the 1700s, whatever. I'm not a history major. When the steam engine came out and it could drive faster than railroad workers, you don't tell them to be irreplaceable. That's a skill. That's a hard-working job. If you're an artist, that it's always your job to be irreplaceable. I don't know. I apply that to myself too as a writer and as someone who makes music. ChatGPT is coming from my job too.
Yeah,
it's my job to have a voice that can't be replicated, and when they do replicate it, I change it to something else and I make it something they have to keep up with. That is human innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what if you're gonna be an artist, if you're gonna call yourself an artist, the reality is that's the bar.
That's a mantle,
and the bar is
you gotta earn
the bar is always going to be rising. It's always going to be going up. You know, there's a reason why, in spite of all the new bands that are out there, there's a reason why bands like the Rolling Stones are still on top. There's a reason why Springsteen still outsells so many other artists on tour
with that,
because he does it better than they do.
With that, the synthesizer came out. Who are two guys that wrote that used that thing to their advantage better than anybody else? Eddie Van Halen, who was known as a guitar player who made Jump, and Bruce Springsteen, who was considered a folk guy and a rock and roll guy, and then he put out Born in the USA. They said, we'll take that, and what we'll do is we'll use it to make us irreplaceable with it.
Yeah.
They defined it. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. And, you know, I understand that people are scared of AI. I know that, like, in the past few weeks, a lot of they've been showing how AI is now able to replicate people's voices.
Creepy, yeah.
Yeah, it is scary. I get that. And, but when you add deep fake technology to all that, I know that puts us in like a weird Orwellian whatever.
There's going to be governments that use that in kangaroo courts, but they were going to do that anyway. They were always falsifying information. Now they can just falsify it better.
Yeah. But yeah, when it comes down to this idea of, like the chat stuff and the art programs and all that stuff, I mean, you're not going to have an AI that can write something that's as meaningful as a Steinbeck.
No, and you got to have the punk attitude, man. You got to believe in the punk attitude, despite all of the punk bands going corporate now. Rage for the machine, rage on behalf of the machine. What will happen?
Rage at the behest of the machine.
At the beast of the machine. What will happen? AI, a whole generation will use AI. The one that's connected to that, or one after that, will hate it and detest it and be sick of it. And they will want genuine art. And they will think they have to make it. And some of them will be pretentious hipster douchebags who will be ripping off stuff now to make it. But some of them, even some of those pretentious hipster douchebags, will have been influenced by something genuine that people have already kept doing. The AI has tried to drown out. These people have tried to drown out. And they'll be timeless. You have to be that. You have to be irreplaceable. Again, I want to make it very clear. I would never say that to a farmer or someone who used to harvest crops that was replaced by a combine. I'm saying if you're an artist, that's your job from day one, because an artist is timeless. If you are not trying to create something timeless and irreplaceable, you're not an artist.
Yeah, quit.
Yes, I would say that. You should go.
Quit.
You can be a great illustrator. You can be a great musician and not be an artist. You can be a terrible illustrator and a terrible musician and be an artist. Those are two different things.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Yeah.
And I'll never consider AI art. I don't think anyone should, but you can consider it teaching tools. You can consider it a means, a method of media to convey information, which we will unabashedly use. And I think
I'm not ashamed to do that.
No, I think people should do that.
And the reality is too. Even if I've sent you a lot of things that I created through AI to be used just
that were based more videos off of your original work.
Right, and those things, like I've spent a long time figuring out how to get what I want out of those systems. And like I sent you a picture the other day that I had done through just trying some different things, and like I wanted to create like a snowy landscape with a creature in it. I took paper and tore pieces of paper up, added on a wooden table to where, like, because I know I've learned how to fool the AI into doing what I wanted to do, and I knew that it would look at the shadows and stuff and create the landscape I wanted, and that it would turn my brown wooden table into the ground.
Yeah.
And that he would, like, I knew how to, and so that photo that I ran in through my program, once I add all of the stuff that I wanted to do, I didn't just put in a text prompt and it spit out something.
Yeah, you've created something that someone else can't replicate.
Yeah, it's and you everything that I send to you is probably the 50th or 60th or 70th time that I've regenerated it or made a slight adjustment and then generated again until I get what I'm looking for.
That's one way. There will be multiple ways. That's one way to beat this thing and to make it more artistic towards that spectrum. Because what people think now is that they're going to be like synthographer jockeys and they'll sell their prompts to people, like their paragraph that they figured out. And then people can take that and put it in and get the same thing. What you should be doing is what you just said. Start from a created base. No one else can lay those papers in the exact same formation. And by the time that someone knows your technique and tries it, you're on to another technique, or you've improved that one. That's what you have to do. And these are, I guess this is what we're talking now is caveman tools compared to what could be done and could be used. Again, I don't consider AI art, but you can make it a little more artistic if you start treating it as a tool and start using the art from you into it.
I just consider it another paintbrush. It's just another pen.
Yeah. And it will always be something that people have to compete with. But again, welcome to the synthesizer. If I could name this podcast, I'd probably call it that. Welcome to the synthesizer. I don't. I would love to have this debate with a ton of artists. I would love to, because now's the time, man. Especially we talked with Daryl from the Loop Brothers podcast about the Iron Age. If you guys want to talk about the Iron Age, if I'm actually issuing this challenge to people who might know it, I might make this a short. You want to talk about the Iron Age, you have to address AI art. You have to confront it, because that is how things are going. It doesn't mean you have to use it, but you have to understand it, and you have to know how to beat it. And what'll happen is some kid with a piece of chalk can beat it, and he probably will. Some savant that will make something that people will have to bulldoze and like chirp up the ground to pull up his drawing and put it on a wall that will sell for $12 million. That's what this always does. With the rise of the synthesizer comes punk rock. With punk rock comes glam. These are how these things go. What you can't do is drop out and pout because Kurt Cobain isn't playing any solos and you spent 20 years learning theory and now no one wants you to shred.
Yeah.
Go to Japan and join G3.
Well, and I also understand that those skills still matter. There will be a day when people do want to hear solos again.
Well, it never went away. It just went away. But right now, in parts of America, it went away. Like not Jason Becker. Who's the guy that worked with Mustaine on Tornado of Souls and all that? Wonderful guy.
Friedman, Marty Friedman.
That dude never lost work. None of those guys, none of those virtuosos ever lost work.
Yeah. And it's just that idea of like I either need to learn how to use this thing better than everybody else, or I need to come up with something that's so new and so different that it presents an alternative that's better than this thing.
Yeah, do both.
Yeah, ideally do both. The bottom line, like if you can boil all this down, when it comes to any new technology that could be seen as a threat, boil it down to this: work harder. Work harder. Outwork it.
Yep. Well, that's the John Henry story.
Yeah, make it work for you.
Even, and I might be butchering it, but he in the story he beat the machine, and the whole point was to show that he will die and the machine will keep going, and that's the whole point, is that the human spirit, humans still die and they're fragile, but look what they can do in their time. And it was also the human spirit that invented the machine. Again, I want to reiterate, because there's going to be someone in the comments, I would never say learn to code like a bunch of journalists did.
Yeah.
If you're an art, things are different, and I only say that because I apply the same rules. This is something Josh and I do, and we want to be held. This is why we are radically transparent about how we make art and what we do, and the fact that we are using AI for certain things, such as telling lore videos. I have full intention of, when Josh makes like a badass AI picture, of selling a poster of it, and because we can't copyright it, we'll sell the signature on it. Like I said, we as artists, we apply those rules to ourselves. You make something, die trying making something amazing and timeless. Frank Miller's not worried about AI art because he's established his name. You are gonna buy something because it's got his name on it, even if AI could replicate all of Sin City in 3 seconds. Nobody cares. His name is better and bigger than AI's.
And hey, if the train runs over you, leave a pretty stain.
Make a monument of you. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not going to go into that, but I mean, go watch The Last Samurai. I'm not saying I agree with all of that, everything presented, but that was the whole thing. That's what the whole respect was. It was like, do not go gently into that good night. Go charge a howitzer with a katana.
Die with honor.
There.
Die with honor.
I don't think that'll happen.
I don't think it will either, but be prepared for it to happen.
And I'm not trying to toot our horns here, but I'm telling you guys, if you weren't a musician, or if you don't study music, not saying not from a technical term, but the history of it and the aesthetic of it, you need to, because this pattern has happened throughout music numerous times,
and will happen again.
And you see what happens to the guys who fight it. Like, Metallica is still in business, but if Metallica had been smaller with the crap they tried to pull with Napster, That wouldn't have worked. They only got through by the skin of their teeth because they were Metallica. They tried to fight this. They tried to fight change, and they lost.
And, yeah.
I mean, of course, they didn't lose as much money as they should have because they're Metallica. But look what happened. You got guys from SoundCloud that make more money instantly, and stuff like that. I mean, and you can still make quality. You don't have to be a doomer, man. Like, there's not. If you step outside of Twitter and go, I mean, there's a reason. There's dope anime that are still being made and that you can still buy and purchase. Like, people appreciate quality, and that's why our phrasing, I use it to describe Iconic's method, but ours, we're adopting it because I invented it, is quality quickly. If you provide those to people, which is what we are going to do, they'll stick with you. So I don't know. I mean, AI is it's an interesting idea. It'll never be sentient. I'm not worried about that. It'll be used for terrible things, I'm sure. But from the art standpoint, guys, you can't be afraid of it. I mean, go grab your katana and charge it head on.
Exactly. Cut it down.
Yeah.
Cut it down.
Utilize it. Again, to repeat the main things. Use it to define it. Use it to establish your legacy. When the synthesizer was made, Springsteen used it to make Born in the USA. Van Halen, who they said that was the main guy, Eddie had just hit the scene in like 1979 was when Van Halen 1 dropped, redefined electric guitar. Well, the synthesizer had already been invented, but it reached prominence like a year or two after that. What did he do? He picked it up and he made Jump. And people hate. So many guitarists hated him for it, but you know what he said? He said, I've already proven myself as a guitar player, and you didn't know this, but I played the piano first. I've already mastered this.
And how big of a hit was that song?
Everyone loved it, and
album.
Yeah, and he won everybody over because he had the credentials to back it up. He was like, he's already proven himself as a guitar player. And going back to this, like, look, guys, unless you're 50, you grew up with a computer. You have the tools for AI art. You know,
if you got a phone.
What's that?
If you have a phone, you have the tools.
So again, I'm making that comparison. You can be Eddie Van Halen. You had the skills as a piano player, as a computer user, to use this. Here's the thing. You don't have to use it. There's the Henry Rollins kind of Black Flag punk route. You don't have to use it. You can make something else. Go do it. You can use it. It's not. It's a big scary Leviathan, but you can wrangle it. Like you can beat it. And I'm really proud. Josh is already doing it. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to leave you in obsolescence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I feel like that was a good talk.
Yeah,
I know we started off by kind of plugging the book.
We got to.
yeah, absolutely. But like and subscribe. We're gonna try very soon to have this stuff up on Spotify and everywhere else.
Yep.
So those of you that are sticking with us week after week, we appreciate it. Again, you're always welcome to chime in. Let us know if you disagree with us. Let us know if there's something we didn't think about or that we didn't address.
And call us out. We're trying to be radically transparent. Like I said, the best course of action we think with AI art right now is using it for peripheral media, which is more videos, maybe a one-of-a-kind poster that Josh used his art to make with it that you can't just get from a prompt or make something up. That's where we're starting with it. We don't want to compromise our artistic integrity because we believe in artistic integrity, and quite frankly, we don't.
To be as explicit as possible, when we release Apollyon 20XX and that book is in your hand, nothing in that book is AI generated.
No, it couldn't have been.
Not a single frame of it.
No. And when we use it, we will mark it as what it is. like I said, when we have lore videos and we have vast expanse of things, here's the thing: we use it because we consider it a tool to make lesser art.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else, because it's not art. So, as long as you're not lying,
mm-hmm.
I have no problem with it. As long, I mean, that's the same thing with like auto tune. You know, T-Pain used it to great effect. I didn't care for it, but he kind of made a joke out of it. That was the whole thing. It's like, hey, he can't sing, so he wasn't like Cher.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're trying to be radically honest and radically transparent with everything we do. All right. Anything else, Josh?
Nope.
All right.
Peace out.
Peace.